1994, a year that saw the release of tons of anime, some of which would go on to be considered classics to this very day. Sailor Moon S, G Gundam, Macross 7, some more Dragon Ball Z movies, Magic Knight Rayearth, and Plastic Little. While the decade technically started in 1990, of course, I will always argue that it did not truly feel like the 90s anime boom started until 1992 with the release of the original Tenchi Muyo OVA series. So of course, by 1994, we were fully there and it was time for some brand new franchises to try to break through and define the entire decade. And I feel there's one that tried its hardest, but just didn't quite succeed. Who remembers BlueSeed? Ah yes, BlueSeed, the little anime that could, a series that really threw itself in the ring October 1994 to try to win the World Championship of Otaku Love, and it never looked back. This anime is about a schoolgirl named Momoji, and she has superpowers, of course. Soon enough, however, those powers get her into trouble, so luckily there's some creepy guy along with the government that help her out. I think it's also worth noting that the creepy guy is not officially part of the government, however, since he is kind of creepy, I'm sure he'd have a long-lasting career in that field these days. Anyway, she quickly gets wrapped up in one of those whole "you're the only one that can save the world" type of anime plots, and the little anime girl, the government, and the creepy guy join forces to go on all kinds of adventures. And we even quickly learn that the creepy guy isn't as creepy as we thought he was. There goes his career in politics. There's more to the plot than that for sure, considering its roots are in actual Japanese mythology, including the reason the show is even called BlueSeed to start with. But we're not here to look at any of that next level thinking type of stuff today. Nope, we are here to figure out why this show isn't considered one of the greats of its time. So I guess we should start with figuring out if this show is even any good. Well, let's kick things off with the story since we were just speaking about it. It's fine. Truthfully, the story isn't anything that special in the world of anime, but it's not bad by any means either. Sure, you could summarize the whole thing by saying it's about a high school girl and her friends fighting monsters. There's a lot more to it than that, of course, if you want to dive deeper, but most people will see it that way when they watch it initially. It's not the most original thing in the world, but here at Kimchi No Video, we don't necessarily care that much as long as we have some fun, and this one's a good ride for sure. Moving on. Next up, the animation quality and really overall presentation, which is very important on this one. Yeah, that's what anime from the mid-90s looks like for sure. The show looks good and even great at times. The only problem with the show is that by today's standards, it's starting to look a little dated in some not so great ways. However, the actual quality of the traditional animation in the show is pretty good. It's not the real problem here. The problem is the use of the cutting edge, at the time, computer graphics. They are not looking great these days. And to be fair, it was a weird time for anime from a visual standpoint. Creators weren't drawing everything by hand anymore, but a lot of the new technology wasn't as refined as it could be yet, so some of the works from this time period have this weird combination of great hand-drawn art with computer graphics that just have not aged that well. I can return to a show from this time period and enjoy it for what it is. But on the other hand, I could see why a newcomer might just turn this off and go watch Evangelion for the 50th time instead. On top of that, the actual video quality, by modern standards at least, isn't that great. While the Discotek Blu-ray release looks as good as it possibly can with the sources that do exist for this show, it's hard to say this thing looks great with how much better other shows from the same time period look with proper modern HD releases. When this thing first came out, I'm sure it looked great when weebs around the world were watching it on VHS through a CRT TV between rounds of Street Fighter Alpha on PS1. Might have even looked cutting edge at the time. It just hasn't aged as gracefully as many shows from its own time period, or even shows from the 70s and 80s for that matter that have better versions floating around. While everything would most likely look better with a proper HD remaster, some aspects of the visuals of this show will always be stuck in the time period they were produced. Some people will look at those as retro cool, and others will look at them as a relic from the past that's best forgotten. And that's unfortunate because underneath the slightly ugly exterior, there's a good, if not great show here. I just see a lot of people not giving it a chance because of the low definition video sources we have to work with for this thing today. And lastly, we need to take a look at the music and overall sound design. So, you've heard the opening song, right? Well, alright then, shout it with me. Mysterious Tokyo! Pick me up, Foxy Night Game! Now that's what I call an anime opening. I remember watching this show on VHS for the first time, and I still remember this song being stuck in my head for at least the next 150 years of my life. It's just that good. If there's one thing that's undeniable about BlueSeed, it's the opening. This masterpiece of an anime opening song was recorded by the group Takata Band. And you want to hear the worst part about that? This musical act seemed to only exist to make music for BlueSeed and the other underrated anime gem, 3x3 Eyes. I guess some things really are too good to last forever, but I theorize, had this band stayed together, we'd be living in a very different world today. Everyone would be happier, every cat would have a home, and none of the Ramones would have ever passed away just so they could have collabed with this band. Things could have been different. However, luckily, we live in a time period where every band seems to eventually reunite if the money is right for them. So I will patiently wait for that grand return of Takata Band. It could happen one day. Maybe. Probably not. But hey, it's always nice to have a dream. Past that, the voice acting and other music is fine as well. The English dub has the classic 90s ADV vibe that we all know and love, and the Japanese dub is even better. It's good stuff. Alright, so with all of that out of the way, back to the question at hand. Who remembers BlueSeed? Well, apparently not a lot of people, because I feel like I don't ever hear this thing brought up in conversations. Ever. Which is weird, because back in the VHS days, ADV Films promoted this show hard. It felt like this anime was promoted everywhere, from Animerica to blockbusters around the country and Suncoast near and far. And the tapes themselves? Well, you couldn't escape these things. In America, there were 13 of them in total, plus it was released both subtitled and dubbed, so there were actually 26 of these things floating around. Yeah, that's a lot of VHS goodness. However, I feel like this release format really hurt this show quite a bit. While it wasn't super uncommon for anime to be released in this format of 2 episodes per tape during that time period, looking back, I just think it seemed a little bit excessive for a series like this that was a little bit more middle of the road, maybe a little bit more than middle of the road, but definitely not a masterpiece. Some shows had the legs to support tons of releases on VHS. Have you seen how much Ranma there is out there in the format? But BlueSeed? I don't know about that. Don't get me wrong, the packaging was top tier mid-90s ADV bliss, but I feel like a lot of people were discouraged by the amount of time and money it would take to complete this series when they could just go buy the entire collection of Gunsmith Cats on one tape and have an amazing night. I know the way that I originally saw BlueSeed was through Blockbuster, but they only had 2 or 3 volumes of the series, so there was no hope for me to finish this at that time. I know it's very common to bring up price points when discussing anime on VHS because, let's be honest, it was expensive on the format, but it bears repeating here because these prices had to hurt shows like BlueSeed and many others out there. The MSRP for these tapes were $24.95 dubbed or $29.95 subbed. So that means to complete the series dubbed, it would cost you $324.35 or $389.35 subbed, plus tax. Sure, sometimes there were sales or used tapes that would pop up here or there, but most places that stocked a large amount of this stuff, like Suncoast or MediaPlay, didn't have a lot of sales on anime, so it was very pricey to collect an entire series like this. The money had to hurt this series, and many others overall. As mentioned earlier, the more popular shows could work with this release model because people had to see them. But more middle-of-the-road shows like this one, they need to consolidate into less tapes to just stand a fighting chance. Even 3 episodes per tape would have been a game changer, I guarantee. The Tenchi Universe series was released in this format, and look at how much more successful that show was compared to BlueSeed. Yeah, I know Washu was in that, so it's kind of hard to compare and contrast the two because it's unfair because Washu is amazing. But I'm just saying that BlueSeed could have learned a thing or two from Washu. I mean the Tenchi Universe TV series release strategy. Ultimately, it's hard to remember something that you didn't experience to begin with, possibly based on price of entry alone. There's a reason people remember Ninja Scroll. Sure, Ninja Scroll is a great movie, and I know it's a little unfair to compare a movie to a series, especially when we're comparing the cost of entry. But the point is, Ninja Scroll was affordable and easy to obtain, and people talk about it to this very day. Trust me, I was at the store the other day, and there were at least 17 people in line, all of them talking about Ninja Scroll, and I heard at least one of them mention that they watched Ninja Scroll as opposed to BlueSeed because BlueSeed was 13 tapes. Yeah, it blew my mind as well. I know I said that I never hear anyone bring up BlueSeed in conversation. That was the one time, and they bought Ninja Scroll instead, and they're still talking about it to this very day. Luckily, BlueSeed became a lot easier to obtain over time once DVDs came into play, and then it even eventually got its very own Blu-ray release, but the damage was done. I know that personally, I never saw the entire series until the Discotheque Blu-ray release because while I enjoyed those tapes back from the rental days, I didn't have almost $400 to drop on this thing, so it just faded into my memory until a more affordable option became available. So unfortunately, most people did not wait for this show to become more attainable. They just moved on. However, I would argue that those same people are missing out. Despite some of the shade I've thrown at this one, I would argue that this show is mostly good and sometimes even great, so it's certainly worth watching. And I can't be the only one that feels this way because it did spawn an OVA sequel and even a video game on the Sega Saturn, so that's pretty great. I just really feel that this anime had a lot working against it, especially in the States. And as a result, I feel that it will never achieve that legendary status that so many shows from that same time period achieved a long time ago, in all honesty. I could be wrong, but it hasn't happened yet. With all that being said, if you like 90s anime with cheesy early CG graphics on top of some otherwise pretty good looking animation with a serviceable story, I would recommend BlueSeed all day, every day. If you're starting your 90s anime journey from scratch, it wouldn't be the first anime I would recommend, but it would be somewhere on that list at some point, if for no other reason than to experience that opening song 26 times. Yeah, this is one you don't skip when you start watching the show. You just watch it every time. It's that good. So, the question remains, who remembers BlueSeed? Well, I'm sure a few of you people out there do, but come on everyone, bring it up in conversation occasionally so we know that you're out there. I know that there's a lot of stuff from this era, and as a result, a lot of these more middle of the road shows are fading into obscurity, but we have to do our part to keep them in the conscious so nobody forgets about any of them. Trust me, I get it. Not everything is as good as Mad Bull 34, but that's a tall order. At least BlueSeed tried, and I'm okay with that. Good job, BlueSeed. Good job indeed.